Hi, it's Kamil here. This is a video on the topic of taxes, actually. Normally, I don't talk about things like this, but I think I've got enough. There are things I really don't like that the government's doing, or actually governments of many countries now in those times of crisis. In Greece, for example, we observe a big crisis, and it's time, for people to wake up and start doing something, not just sitting there and being annoyed with or really angry with the government but not doing anything. And one of the things that we need to have a look at is taxes. So for a common citizens, people who are not entrepreneurs, they don't have their own business, they're just employees. And for them it's like taxes, like, okay, this is something that we need to pay, and because of taxes we get all those super magnificent things like healthcare, police, firefighters, schools, etc., etc. And they think this is right, but they usually miss the big picture. And the other thing, the consequence of that is that people very often don't like the fact when big corporations or even medium-sized corporation let's say avoid paying taxes, and they are usually upset or angry. Yeah, how dare they? We pay taxes, why don't they? And they miss the point, because the corporations, they very often have a choice. They either pay the tax or they need to lay off some people, hundreds of people. And there is another thing. It's the corporations that actually create workplaces and jobs. Yeah, so those businessmen, they have a choice. Okay, shall I pay taxes which are ridiculously high right now, or shall I, employ more people, So if they want to employ more people, they need to pay less taxes, so they find ways. And they don't do anything illegal, they just use the system that there is in the world to find a way to pay smaller taxes in certain areas, or not pay taxes at all. And the question is, why wouldn't they? If you have a choice to earn £100 or 120, what would you choose? Obviously, you would say, yeah, I'll take 120. It's the same thing. If you're an employee, it's very difficult for you to avoid paying taxes because your employer pays taxes for you and you don't have any space for maneuver. But if you had that space, like businesses have, you would be doing the same thing. So another thing, I know that some of you will say lots of things, but with that money we have schools and other things. Okay, let me tell you the truth. The truth is that most of the tax that you pay, that the corporations pay and everyone pays, they are actually they go to pay the debts that your government has. So in most governments, if not all governments in the world, they have debts and they need to pay them off. And for example, in case of UK, the debt is so huge that even if they stop borrowing money now, it would take 3-4 generations to pay that off. Okay, but they keep borrowing, so the debt is growing. So what they pay off is actually bigger. So the most of your taxes actually goes to pay those debts, right? So now, so for an entrepreneur, a businessman, it's just a complete waste of money, because first of all, it goes to pay off some debts that are not ours. So if I'm a businessman, I would say, okay, so they ask me to pay this much tax, and most of it goes just to pay to some banks. And I didn't take those loans. Yeah, it's the government who took the loans and actually misspend them, spend them when in the way they shouldn't. And I need to pay for that. Why? That's the first thing. Yeah. Second thing, the things that the government actually gets to actually invest in the so-called country, they actually are mismanaged. So, and they are wasted anyway, because governments are not really good, money managers. So that's another reasons why someone, a businessman, wouldn't pay, taxes. Another thing is, you say you get schools, hospitals, etc. Let me tell you something. Do you know how much tax you pay? If you think that you pay only 20% of the income tax and maybe 10% of your national insurance, you are completely wrong, because in everything that you buy there is VAT, and VAT is 20%. Now, if you think about this, 20% is a lot of money. So if you pay for something that's £6,000, £1,000 is tax. Okay, so there's another 20%. Now, in the process of creating that product for £6,000, there have been components used and various services and labor, and each of those carry actually 20%. And there are some other taxes. So in the end, what you really pay is not the 20 or 30%, but 70, 80%. So can you imagine that 80% of the money goes somewhere? Now let me ask you something. If you earned 80% more, or if your purchasing power was 70% bigger than it is now, so let's say you're earning now 20,000 pounds. So it's not actually 70%, but it's many multiples of that. So let's say it would be like 67. If you would effectively earn 70,000 pounds if there wasn't tax, because your purchasing power would be so much greater. Okay. So you could afford really marvelous health service privately. You could afford many other things. You could afford private schools, and you could afford many other things. You know, the tax is real shambles, you know. So first of all, the government was manipulated by banks, by evil banks, into taking the loans that they couldn't pay. That's the first thing. Second of all, those loans, it's a scam in the first place, because the banks, all the banks, they didn't actually give them the money. They produce the money out of the thin air, because they have created a system that has been legalized, where they can create money without any money. They just print it, you know, they just print it, and they give them to people as a loan. It's the biggest con in the world. You know, they print the money and that's it, and they give them to you not for free, but as a loan. Can you imagine that? You need to then pay them back with interest. So they manipulated the government in this con. They give them the loan, they make sure that the governments cannot really pay it back, so they pay the interest all the time. And you know what? You work your ass off to actually pay the taxes, which go to pay the banks, which didn't do anything, just print the money. Okay? And then you listen to the news, you know, giving you various stories, and you're like, yeah, let's raise the taxes for the rich people, you know, they should be paying. No, it's the rich people who created the job that you have right now. And if you tax them, they will either stop creating the jobs, or they will go to another country, or they will find other ways not to pay taxes, because the higher the taxes, the more initiatives the rich people, the businesses have actually to find ways not to pay taxes. So again, they pay less taxes, so the government raises the taxes for you, and you actually pay more, so it costs you more. It's crazy. And we know from all over the world that if you actually lower the taxes, the economy starts thriving. So I would like people to finally start waking up to the fact that taxes are not what they seem. They are not a complete evil, but the system that we have now, it just doesn't work. You know, and if we look at it, it is evil, because, you know, it's like a catch-22, you know. We raise taxes, businesses don't pay taxes then, because there is no point, you know, they don't have initiative, and they look for ways not to pay taxes. So our income from taxes is lower, so we need to raise the taxes again, and it just goes like this, and it's crazy. You know, you need to lower the taxes to 10% and less, so people actually feel comfortable, because if you pay 10%, you can kind of live with that, but if you pay more, it's really difficult. And frankly speaking, the tax shouldn't be more than 5%, because why should you pay so much money to somebody else? For what? For those shabby services that you get, and for the banking system that's complete shambles. That's a scam. It's the biggest scam in the universe, I believe. At least the biggest scam of this planet is the banking system all over the world, and it just doesn't work. You know, so if you are an employee, don't, you know, don't ask people to pay higher taxes. Don't ask rich people to pay higher taxes. Just ask the government to lower all the taxes, because this is how our economy is going to get better. And anyway, the other thing you need to ask the government is to get rid of the current banking system, which is complete con. It's a scam designed to actually put you into poverty from generation to generation. If you compare your generation with other generations, with your parents, it was so much easier for your parents to buy a house, home, and to do other things, to travel even, you know. Maybe they couldn't afford traveling to other countries because the cheap airlines did not exist then, but generally life was easier, people were richer. And the government, that's one of the biggest cons. In the UK, the government introduced the inheritance tax, which is supposedly not compulsory, it's not mandatory, but nevertheless people pay that. Can you imagine? It's 40%. So the government comes and says, look, we will take half of your parents' life because we say so. And people happily pay it because it's a tax, because the government said so. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, your parents have been working their ass off for 30, 40, 50 years, and the government comes and says, okay, I'll have half of it. And you just say, okay, here you go, my dear government. Well, you're welcome. Can you imagine that? And people don't do anything about this. Come on, stop paying taxes, find ways. Even if you're an employee, you can still find ways to not pay taxes. You can go to your employer and say, look, I will become a self-employed, and let's work it out how we can do it. You will lose some benefits, but it will give you mechanisms to save money. You can set up an international business company, and you can do many other things to actually not pay such high taxes and have your income go higher. And the sooner the current financial system collapses, the better for us, because maybe then something better will be created that actually works for 99% of people, not 1% of people like it is right now. So thank you for watching this. I hope that was, that opened your eyes a bit. And if you need to understand the system, the banking system, the financial systems, please research. There are lots of films on YouTube about the history of money. That will be your first eye opener. How the money is created, how we have the current banking system. That's the biggest con of our times. And also watch videos on how banks works. The Zeitgeist movement, they have brilliant videos, but there are many others, so please watch them. And also the history of tax as well, you might find interesting. Remember that many years ago tax didn't exist, or it was very small, but obviously there was a time when there was no tax, and suddenly someone introduced it and it was going higher and higher until we've got this ridiculous 70–80% of tax levels now. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.